There are moments in your life when the ordinary suddenly feels heavy with meaning. When a simple word, a fleeting silence, or an unexpected event seems to pierce deeper than reason can explain. You might be scrolling through your screen, lost in distraction, and yet, something inside whispers, "Wait, pay attention." That whisper is not random. That interruption is not coincidence. It is a call, quiet but relentless, from a presence greater than your understanding, trying to reach you in a world that keeps you numb. You have brushed it off before. You told yourself it was just emotion, or guilt, or nostalgia. But what if it was something more? What if, in the unseen corridors of your soul, a divine hand has been knocking, waiting, longing for you to notice that the ordinary is glowing with sacred light? You see, the divine does not always thunder. Sometimes, he speaks through the hum of your routine. He hides in the delays, the disappointments, the detours. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every sleepless night is not a punishment. It is a lesson written in invisible ink. The question is not whether God is speaking. The question is whether you are still enough to hear him. Because the noise of this age is louder than ever. Notifications, opinions, comparisons, distractions. And in that endless noise, we lose the melody of meaning. The soul becomes deaf to the one voice that truly matters. Yet even in your chaos, even in your stubbornness, that voice does not stop calling. Sometimes God reaches you not by giving what you asked for, but by taking away what you depended on. Sometimes he hides not because he is far, but because he wants you to seek. For the heart grows only in the absence of certainty. Pain is not the opposite of his presence, it is often the evidence of it. The storm that broke you was not random. It was arranged. The tears that fell were counted. The silence you hated was holy. There is purpose in the pause, reason in the rejection, beauty in the breaking. Every moment you thought was meaningless was secretly molding you. Every delay was divine timing disguised as disappointment. Every emptiness was preparing space for something eternal. But how easily we dismiss these messages. We label them coincidences, strange feelings, or just luck. We prefer control, not conversation. We want to plan, not to pause. Yet God is not found in the rush. He is found in the stillness after the rush has exhausted you. He waits until your pride has run out of energy. Until your logic admits it cannot fix what is broken. Until your heart grows tired of pretending. And when all the noise fades, when you finally stop trying to earn peace, that is when his voice becomes clear. Not through thunder, but through tenderness. You might think you are too lost, too distracted, too late to hear him now. But he specializes in reaching hearts that have wandered the farthest. You are not too broken for grace. You are simply in the perfect position for revelation. You may think you stumbled upon this moment by accident. But maybe this is the moment that was waiting for you all along. The moment that interrupts your scrolling, your business, your indifference, and says, "Look up. Listen. I have been here all along." When the world grows louder, God often speaks softer. Not to compete with the noise, but to invite you into quiet. That quiet is not emptiness, it is encounter. You are not being ignored, you are being invited. Every unease in your soul, every restlessness in your mind, every longing that success could not satisfy is evidence that eternity is whispering within you. You keep chasing something to fill the silence, but the silence itself is sacred. That hollow space in your chest is not a flaw, it is an altar. It was designed for his voice to dwell there. And maybe right now, he is trying to reach you again. Not through sermons or miracles or dramatic signs, but through the quiet ache of your own soul. The ache that will not let you settle for the shallow. The ache that makes you question. The ache that whispers you were made for more. Listen closely. Because when God tries to reach you, it's not with noise, but with nearness. Not with chaos, but with clarity. Not with fear, but with a love that has followed you through every wrong turn. Every conversation you ignored, every message you skipped, every moment you brushed aside could have been him trying to get through. And even now he is patient. He does not force his way in. He waits for you to look up, to stop running, to recognize that maybe all along, the interruptions were invitations. Maybe all along, the voice you thought was faint was actually constant. Maybe all along, the thing you were searching for was searching for you. You call them accidents, but heaven calls them appointments. The flat tire that delayed you, the door that closed when you were certain it would open, the person who left without explanation, the sudden illness, the unexpected silence. All of them are threads in a larger design, weaving meaning where you once saw only misfortune. You see, we have trained ourselves to interpret convenience as blessing and disruption as failure. But what if the interruptions are where grace hides? What if the very moments that inconvenience you are the ones that are meant to awaken you? The divine does not always arrive with music and light. Sometimes it appears disguised as trouble, wrapped in confusion, dressed as loss. But beneath the surface, something sacred is at work, reshaping your direction, saving you from a path you could not see would destroy you. We live in a time where everything must be explained, predicted, and controlled. We call it logic, reason, practicality. Yet, in that obsession with understanding, we often reject the very mystery that gives life its meaning. The divine interruptions do not appeal to logic. They appeal to faith. They do not flatter your schedule. They test your surrender. When plans fall apart, we think the universe is against us, but often it is mercy itself intercepting our path. You wanted a straight road, heaven offered a detour. You prayed for ease, he gave endurance. You asked for signs, he sent silence. Because only in silence do you begin to listen with your soul instead of your ears. Only in delay do you learn patience. Only in confusion do you learn trust. Think of how many times something you didn't want became the very thing you needed. The friend who left so you could discover independence. The job you lost that pushed you into your calling. The heartbreak that tore you open so the light could finally enter. Every divine interruption is a message in disguise. It says, stop. You are running too fast toward what will harm you. Slow down and look around. You call it rejection, heaven calls it redirection. You call it bad luck, heaven calls it protection. The divine speaks the language of timing, not of convenience. And when timing clashes with your plans, it feels like chaos, but it is often choreography. You were never meant to understand every interruption immediately. Understanding is the fruit, not the seed. You will see later what you resist now. You will look back and realize the delay was design, the loss was love, the pain was preparation. But in the middle of it, you are asked to trust without proof. That is where most hearts fail, not because they are weak, but because they are impatient. We want God to explain, but he wants us to experience. We want certainty, but he gives faith. Faith grows not when everything goes right, but when everything goes wrong and you choose to still believe there is meaning. So, when life interrupts you, pause before you panic. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? You may discover that heaven is speaking in the language of disruption. Sometimes the lesson is hidden inside the loss. Sometimes the message is wrapped in the moment that disappoints you. Do not despise what delays you. It may be saving you. Do not curse the detour. It may be delivering you. Every unanswered prayer is an unopened letter from eternity, waiting for you to stop resisting long enough to read it. Perhaps the divine interruption is not trying to ruin your life, but to realign it. Perhaps the discomfort you feel is the friction of transformation. Perhaps that obstacle is not in your way, it is the way. And when you begin to see your interruptions not as punishments, but as invitations, everything changes. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? You stop fighting for control and start learning the language of surrender. You stop seeing life as chaos and begin to see it as conversation. Because the truth is, heaven has always been speaking. We have simply been too busy explaining it away. What if today's inconvenience is tomorrow's revelation? What if the very thing you are resisting is the instrument of your redemption? The divine does not need your approval to work. It only asks for your awareness. Each interruption is an invitation to look higher, to step back, to remember that life is not happening to you, but for you. You do not always need to understand the reason. You only need to recognize the reach. The moment you stop labeling your interruptions as accidents, you begin to hear the message hidden inside them. The whisper that says, "You are not lost. You are being guided." There is a kind of silence that is not empty but overflowing. It hums quietly beneath the noise of the world, patient, ancient, unchanging. It is not the silence of loneliness, but of presence. Most people fear silence because they have never learned to sit within it without trying to fill it. They rush to distract themselves, to drown out the quiet with sound, movement, chatter. Anything that keeps them from hearing the deeper voice that waits in stillness. But that voice does not shout, it does not demand. It waits. It whispers in the pauses between your thoughts, in the gap between your heartbeats, in the moments when the world stops insisting on your attention. That is where heaven speaks. That is where understanding begins, not in noise, but in the quiet recognition that the eternal is near. When you begin to listen with your heart instead of your ears, you realize that silence is not absence. It is language. Every sunset that stops you in your tracks, every breath that feels heavier than usual, every ache that words cannot explain, they all speak in the same sacred dialect. But to hear it, you must unlearn the art of rushing. You must become still enough to notice that the divine does not compete for attention. It invites it. Silence is the classroom of the soul, where truth writes its lessons not in ink but in awareness. And the heart that refuses to be still remains a student that never learns. We live in a world addicted to volume. Everyone wants to speak, no one wants to listen. We crave opinions more than wisdom, noise more than knowledge. But the wisdom that transforms does not come from voices outside, it rises from the quiet within. It is there that the soul hears what the mind cannot grasp. In that place, you realize that faith is not built by answers, but by awareness. You start to feel the difference between what is loud and what is true. Loud things demand your attention. True things hold it. Loud things flatter your ego. True things shape your soul. And truth, more often than not, speaks softly. When the heart begins to love silence, it no longer panics in seasons of waiting. It no longer fears solitude. It learns to recognize stillness as a sign, not a void. Because in silence, heaven trains the heart to hear what the world cannot say. It teaches you that revelation does not always arrive with thunder, that peace does not always need proof, that sometimes the holiest moments are the quietest ones. The divine does not need noise to be powerful, it only needs your attention. Listen carefully, and you will notice. Before every turning point in your life, there was a silence. Before every breakthrough, there was a pause. Before every new chapter, there was an emptiness that felt unbearable. That emptiness was not punishment, it was preparation. Silence stretches your spirit so that it can hold more truth when it comes. You cannot hear new things while you are filled with old noise. The quiet clears space. It teaches the heart to wait without despair, to believe without evidence, to love without applause. It is in silence that you realize you are never truly alone, because presence does not need words to be real. There are times when you ask for answers and receive nothing but stillness. And you grow restless, thinking heaven has gone quiet. But perhaps the silence is the answer. Perhaps the absence of noise is a sign that what you seek cannot be explained. It must be experienced. Words are too small for certain truths, and so they are spoken in silence. When your mind screams for clarity and receives none, it is then that your soul begins to learn the vocabulary of trust. The silence is not rejection. It is revelation written in a form only the patient can read. The world teaches you to fear the quiet because it confronts you with yourself. But if you can learn to stay in it, if you can resist the urge to escape it, you will discover that silence is not empty space. It is sacred ground. It is where your scattered thoughts settle into order, where your wounds begin to breathe, where your heart finally stops running. And when it does, you begin to sense something immeasurable, a gentle, unwavering peace that does not depend on anything external. That peace is the voice of heaven, speaking in its oldest, purest language. So when you find yourself surrounded by silence, do not rush to fill it. Sit within it. Let it speak. It is in those quiet hours, when nothing seems to move, that eternity leans closest. The stillness is not ignoring you, it is embracing you. And the heart that listens long enough will understand that silence was never the absence of God's voice. It was his way of saying, I am here.